Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is HTML buttons right here. By the end of this video, you are going to understand everything about HTML buttons, what they are, how they work, how to style them and how to make them interactive. So make sure you watch this video till the very end. Let's get started. Before we jump into buttons, let me give you a very quick refresher on HTML itself. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Okay, it is a standard language used to create and structure content on the web. Every single website you visit, Google, YouTube, Facebook, all of them are built using HTML at their core. So HTML works using something called tags. A tag is a keyword wrapped inside angle brackets. So for example, let me show you like the paragraph tag. Okay, so most HTML tags have an opening tag and a closing tag. The closing tag has a forward slash before the keyword and the content goes in between the two tags. Like this is paragraph. Okay. Now one of the most powerful and useful tags in HTML is the button. There is a button tag. And that is exactly what we are learning today. A button in HTML is an interactive element that users can click to perform an action on a web page. Think about it, every time you click login, sign up, add to cart, buy now, or submit on any website, you are clicking an HTML button. So buttons are literally the backbone of users' interaction on the internet. Without buttons, users would have no way to trigger actions, submit data, or navigate between things. That is how important buttons are. Now let's look how you actually write a button in HTML. The syntax is extremely simple. So let me show you the basic syntax. You need button opening tag, then you need to close it and you write for example click me. Okay, so button as you can see is the opening tag. Click me is the text that appears on the button and this button is the closing tag. If you write this in an HTML file and open it in a browser, you'll see a clickable button with the text like click me on it. So simple as that. Let me open up the preview tab so you can better observe the code. As you can see, we have a button. Now here is where things get really important. The button tag has a very critical attribute called type attribute. Okay, let me show you the type attribute. So there is another attribute. The button tag has a very critical attribute. So this attribute tells the browser what kind of buttons this is and what it should do. There are three values for the type attribute. And let me write here the type 1. The type 1 you need to write here button, then you use the type attribute and you need to write here button and you write here for example click me. Okay, now let me add here the break line tag. Okay, so this is a general purpose button. By default, it does absolutely nothing when clicked unless you attach a JavaScript action to it. You use this type when you want to trigger custom behavior like showing a pop-up, changing content on the page, or running any JavaScript function. And there is another type that is type 2. Let me write here the button, use the type attribute, and there is type 2 that is submit. When you write here submit. Okay, so this is another type. And this button is specifically used inside HTML forms. When a user clicks this button, it collects all the data from the form fields and sends it to the server for processing. For example, when you fill in a login form and press the login button, that is a submit button doing its job. There is another type that is type 3. So let me write here the type 3 and that is reset. If you write here reset, okay, so this button is also used inside forms. When clicked it, when you click this button, it clears all the input fields in the form and resets everything back to the default empty state. It is like an undo button for forms, very handy when users make mistakes filling out a long form. So you might be wondering what happens if I don't write the type attribute at all. Great question. If you do not specify a button, if you do not specify a type, the button defaults to type submit. So when it is inside a form, this can cause unexpected behavior. Your form might submit accidentally when the user just wanted to click a button. So always write the type attribute explicitly. It is a best practice every developer should follow. Now let me show you how a button fits inside a complete HTML page structure. Okay, so first of all, we need doc type HTML, then we need HTML. So inside this we need language, and we are going to set it to English. Now we need the head tag, and inside head tag we need the meta. So inside meta we are going to use char set UTF-8. Okay, so let me write here 8. Now we need meta again, and we are going to write here name viewport, right here viewport, and we need here content as an attribute, and I'm gonna write here width is equal to device width. Okay, now we need here initial scale is equal to 1.0. Okay, let me close this tag. Now what I need here, we need here the title tag. So I'm gonna write here HTML buttons. Okay, so we are going to start here the body tag, and inside the body we need h1, I mean the first heading. Let me write some text here like welcome to my page. Okay, so I'm gonna write here button, and now we need to set the type. The type is button. Okay, I'm gonna write some text like click me. So let me walk you through this line by line. Here first of all we have doc type HTML. It tells the browser that this is an HTML5 document. Then we have HTML language English, the root element of the page, and language English means the language is English. Then we have head. So head contains behind the scenes information about the page. Like here we have meta charset UTF-8. It supports all characters and symbols. Then we have meta name view. It will adjust the content according to the device. Then we have the body tag. As you can see, everything inside here is what the user actually sees on the screen. Then we have h1, a large heading, and a button type. We set it to button, our button. So by default buttons look very plain and old fashioned. To make them look modern and attractive, we use CSS. So let me add some CSS to this to make our button interactive. So we need to write here the style tag. Then we are going to cover button. So for example, I'm gonna use the background color. For example, would be 4CAF50, and now we need to write here the color would be white. And now let me add some padding. Padding will be 12 px and 25 px. Okay, now let me add some font size, and font size for example would be 16 px. Okay, so now let me add some border, and I'm going to set it to none. Okay, as you can see the border has been removed. Okay, let me add some border radius, and the border radius will be 8 px, as you can see, and the cursor is pointer. Okay, so as you can see, so now let me explain every CSS property one by one. As you can see, the background color is hash for CAF50. This sets the background color of the button. Here we are using a hex color code which gives a nice green color, and the color is white, the text color. This sets the text color to white so it stands out clearly against the green background. And there is a padding 12 px and 25 px. Padding adds space inside the button, 12 px on top and bottom and 25 px on left and right. So this makes the button bigger and easier to click. Then there is a font size, as you can see, that is 16 px. It controls how large the text inside the button appears. Then we set the border to none, and it removes the default ugly border that browser put around buttons. Okay, then there is a border radius that is 8 px, rounds the corners of the button, giving it a smooth modern appearance. Then we set the cursor to pointer. It changes the mouse cursor to a hand icon, as you can see, when hovering over the button, so users know it is clickable. Okay, Now let's make our button even more interactive by adding a hover effect. A hover effect changes the appearance of the button when the user moves their mouse over it. Okay, so let me add the hover effect. So we need here button, then colon hover. Okay, now we are going to use here the background color. The background color, for example, would be 45A049. Okay, and if you do not use hex code, you can also use like dark blue. And then you need to write here transition. Let me write here transition, and the transition background, let me write here background color 0.3 sec ease. Okay, we will explain it later. So if you hover over this, as you can see, so button hover, we have added button hover. This CSS selector targets the button only when the mouse is hovering over it. So background color, as you can see, it is dark blue. It changes the color to dark blue, and there is a transition, as you can see. So transition background color 0.3 is makes the color change happen smoothly over 0.3 seconds instead of snapping instantly. So this gives a very professional feel to your website. Okay, use this. So a button that just sits there and looks pretty is not very useful. We needed to do something when clicked. So for that we use JavaScript. So for example, here we have used the button type. Okay, here if you use, for example, on click, so let me write here on click, and you use, for example, alert. Okay, then you use some text like I'm gonna use here your you clicked the button. Okay, so we have used this here on click. As you can see, we have used this attribute is an HTML attribute. So when the button is clicked, it runs the JavaScript code inside the codes. In this case, it shows a pop-up alert message. Okay, so let me open up so you can better observe the code. So for example, you need to check it like this. So let me show you. So if you click on this button, and you can see you clicked the button. Okay, so in this way you can show your code. So okay, now we are going to use add event listener in JavaScript. So what we need here, we need the button, then we need the ID, and then we are going to add some code to the script. So first of all, we are going to remove this button from here. Let me remove this button. So now, okay, we have removed the button. Okay, let me add the button here. Now we need to set the type. The type, for example, is button, and I'm gonna set the ID, and the ID is, for example, my button ID name. Okay, let me add here like click me. Okay, now let me add some JavaScript code. So for example, first of all, we need here script. Now we need constant. So we need here button, and I'm gonna use here document dot get element by ID. Okay, so get element by ID, we are going to use here the class name, or sorry, ID name, and that is my button. Okay, so now what we are going to do next, we need here button dot add event listener, and we are going to write here click. Okay, now we need here function, we are going to call here the function. Okay, now we are going to write here alert, and we are going to write here button was clicked. Okay, so we are going to close this. Now we need to close this too. So okay, if you open up in browser, let me open up in browser so you can better observe this code. As you can see here, uh, if you click on this button, as you can see the button was clicked, it pop up. Okay, so this is the cleaner and more professional way to handle button clicks. So in this code, as you can see, document.get element by id, as you can see, finds the button in the HTML using its id. Okay, so add event listener click function, as you can see, listens for a click event and runs the function when it happens. So inside the function, we write whatever we want to happen. So in this case, showing an alert. Sometimes you want a button to be visible but not clickable. For example, a submit button that should only activate after the user agree to terms and conditions. You can do this with the disabled attribute. So for example, let me add another button. So if you add here the button, like uh, if you add here the button and then you set the type. Okay, let me add the type. The type is, for example, submit. Okay, then you set it to disabled, so you have disabled the button. Now if you write here submit, okay, so when disabled, as you can see, the button becomes grayed out. Okay, so it will become grayed out. It is not graying because we have added CSS. Let me remove the CSS from this. Okay, so we are going to remove our CSS so that it will become grayed out. Okay, so as you can see, we have set the button type and we set it to disabled. The button becomes grayed out automatically and cannot be clicked. Okay, so you can then enable it using JavaScript. So how you can do this? So you need, for example, let me remove this code from here. We are going to add a new script. So first of all, we need here script tag. Let me add the script tag. So in script tag, we need, for example, you are going to write here document dot get element by id. Okay, so you need here get element by id and you write, for example, like this submit. Okay, then you use here disabled and then you are going to okay and then false. So this is used heavily in real world applications to prevent users from submitting incomplete forms. Now let's put everything together with a full real world example. Okay, we are going to create a contact form with buttons. Okay, so first of all, we need here doc type HTML. Then we need here HTML. We need here to add language and we are going to set it to English. First of all, we need here head tag. So inside head tag, we need the style tag. So we are going to style our body first of all. So I'm gonna use the font family. The font family would be, for example, Arial, and let me write here Arial and sans serif. Okay, so now let me add some padding to our body, and the padding would be, for example, 30 px. Now let me cover up the input and text area. So I'm gonna use here the display. The display will be block. Okay, let me add it to block, and the margin for this will be 10 px and 0, and the padding will be 10 px. Let me add it to 10 px, and the width will be, for example, 300 px. Okay, the border will be let me add the border, and the border will be 1 px solid hash triple c. Okay, it will be the border, and the border radius, let me add the border radius too. The border radius will be 5 px. Okay, now let's cover up the button. So here we are going to cover up the button. The button padding will be, for example, let me add the padding. The padding will be 10 px and 20 px. Okay, now let me add the margin right. So the margin right will be 10 px, and I'm going to set the border for this. The border will be none, and I'm going to set the border radius. The border radius, for example, would be 5 px. Now let me add some cursor, and I'm going to set it to pointer. Okay, now let me add the font size of the text, and it will be 15 px. Now let me add the class to cover up the class, we need to write here like this dot submit button. Okay, it is a class name, and the background color for this will be, for example, hash 4ca f50. Okay, and the text color will be, for example, white. Now let's cover the another class that's name is dot reset button. Okay, it is a class name, and the background color for this will be hash f 44336. Now the color will be, for example, white. Let's close this tag and we are going to start our body. Okay, so inside body we need first of all h2, I mean the heading 2. Now we are gonna use here contact us. Okay, so what we are going to do, we need here the form tag, and we're gonna write here action attribute, and I'm gonna write here submit. Okay, and the method will be, for example, post. The method will be post. So now let me add the input tag, and I'm going to set the type will be text. Okay, first of all, and I'm going to write here the placeholder. It is an attribute. The placeholder is an attribute, and I'm going to write here your name. Okay, now I need to close this tag. So next we need another input, and I'm going to set the type will be email. Okay, so we need here placeholder attribute, and I'm going to write here your email. Okay, we need to close this tag too. Now we need here the text area. Text area is a tag, and I'm going to use here the placeholder as an attribute, and I'm going to write here your message. And now I'm going to set the rows. The rows are 4, for example, and I'm going to close this tag. So what I need, so I need here, so what I need here, I need the button tag. So let me add the button tags. So first of all, we are going to add some button tag. Let me add here. Let me remove this text area closing tag. So first of all, we need here the button. First button, and I'm going to set the type. The type will be submit, and let me add here the class. Okay, class is an attribute, and I'm going to use here submit button. Now let me close this tag, and I'm going to write here send message. So now let me add another button. The other button is, let me add the type. Let's set the type, and the type is reset, and let's add the class. The class name is reset button. Okay, now let's close this tag, and I'm going to write here clear form. So in this example we have a full contact form. As you can see, the send message button is a green submit button, as you can see. Let me close this so you can better observe this code. The send message, as you can see, button is a green submit button that sends the form data. The clear form button is a red, okay, red reset button that wipes all the fields clean. So this is exactly how real contact forms on website work. Now let me clear up one more confusion that beginners often have. There are two ways to create a button. First way is button. When you use type attribute, then you add button and click me. Okay, another type, if you use let me show you how you can do this. So for example, if you use this way, like input, then you use the type attribute, and you write here, for example, button, and you set the value as an attribute, and you write here, for example, click me. Okay, it will also create a button. So both display a clickable button on screen, but the key difference is the button tag can contain HTML elements inside it, like images, icons, bold text, or anything else. The input tag can only show plain text through the value attribute, nothing more. Okay, So in modern web development, always use the button tag. It is more flexible, more powerful, and it is the standard recommended approach. So one of the coolest thing about the button tag is that you can put icons inside it. A popular icon library called Font Awesome lets you add icons very easily. Okay, so if you for example use here like this in the head tag, let me write here. If you use this like link, oh sorry, if you write here link and you write here relevant, then you write here style sheet and you write here href, then you use for example https, let me write here cdn js dot cloudflare, okay, and .com slash ajax slash libraries slash font awesome and slash 6.0.0 slash css slash all dot minimum dot css. Okay, and when you close this tag, so it will create, as you can see, if we add another button. Okay, if we add another button to in our body, so let me add a button like if you want to add a button, type, the type is button. Okay, so if I close this and I'm gonna write here I tag and I need class, the class is fast for. Okay, so if you okay, let me close this tag and here as you can see, and if you write here download, so this creates a button with a download icon followed by the word download, as you can see. Okay, so in this way you can create this button. So adding icons makes your buttons much more visually clear and user friendly. So let me show you some popular styles used in real websites. So for example, if you use like class, okay, let me give it a class. For example, if you use here button here, let me open up another button. The button name is for example button, and I'm gonna give it a class. The class is for example outline button. Okay, and I'm gonna write here click me. Okay, so if you add some style to it like this dot button, and if you cover it up and you add some background color and you set it to transparent, then you use the border and you set it to 2px solid hash 4 acf 50. Okay, and then you use the for example color, the color for example would be let me write here white, and I'm gonna set the padding, so the padding will be 10px and it will be 20px. Okay, let me change the color. The color will be for example hash 4acf 50. Okay, now let me add some border radius, but the border radius will be for example 5px, and I'm gonna set the cursor for this. The cursor will be for example pointer. Look at this button. In this way you can create different types of button. Okay, so the outline, as you can see, this click me button has a transparent background with just a colored border, so very popular in modern minimal designs. Okay, so there is another type that is peel button. Okay, so let me create the peel button. So it will extremely uh, it is going to have extremely rounded corners. So let me show you how it looks like. So let me remove all the code and we are going to write here button. So first of all we need here button. I'm going to set the type. Okay, let me give it a class. The class is for example peel button. Okay, we are going to cover the class in css, and I'm going to write here peel button. Okay, so first of all we need to cover up the class, and we need here the style tag. and inside style tag we need pill button class. Okay, so I'm gonna write some like the background color. So the background color will be hash 2196, for example f3. Okay, and I'm gonna set the color for this. The color will be white, and let me add some padding will be 10 px and 30 px. Okay, so now let me add the border. Let me remove the border set to none, and the border radius. Okay, so the border radius will be, for example, 50 px. Okay, and the cursor I'm gonna set it to pointer. As you can see, it has more rounded corners. Okay, now let's create another button, that is large button. Okay, so for example we need here button, and then we need here class. The class name is large button. So I'm gonna write here click me. Now we need to cover up this class in style tag, and here we need large button. Then we are going to write here like background color. The background color, for example, E91 E63. Okay, so the color, for example, would be white, and we need here padding. The padding, for example, 18 px and 40 px. Okay, so the font size, for example, I'm gonna set the font size. The font size will be, for example, 20 px, and I'm gonna remove the border. The border will be set to none, and let me add some border radius. The border radius will be 8 px. Okay, let me add 8 px. Okay, so now I'm gonna use the cursor. The cursor will be pointer. Okay, as you can see, the large button is bigger and bolder. Okay, great for call to action sections on landing pages. Alright everyone, let's do a quick recap of everything we covered in this video. We covered HTML buttons, then we covered type attribute, then we used the CSS, we added hover effect to our button, then we used JavaScript with the add event listener to make buttons perform actions when clicked, and we also used the disabled attribute to prevent a button from being clicked. So always prefer button over input type button in modern development. Okay, so you can add icons inside buttons using icon libraries like Font Awesome, and that is a complete and thorough guide to HTML buttons. I hope this video was clear, helpful, and easy to follow. If you learned something new today, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you get notified every time I upload a new tutorial. If you have any questions at all, drop them down in the comment section below. I reply to every comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Keep coding and keep building amazing things.